Now a retelling of the Plunderer anime Part 3. Subscribe to the channel. It is very important for the development of the channel. Following Rihito into the school, they unexpectedly found themselves confronted by a delinquent. It was at this moment that Murdoch realized his ballot had gone missing, leaving him unable to command iron. Captain Allen and Lieutenant Ferrenda, both of whom had been tailing them, swiftly intervened, revealing a startling truth. Japan stood as the last remaining bastion after a devastating global conflict, and the seemingly ordinary school was, in fact, a military academy. Their introduction to the academy's enigmatic headmaster, Major Schmelman, was an unsettling one. Schmelman began with a peculiar rendition of The Tortoise and the Hare, only to take a far more chilling turn by ordering Allen to shoot 3 recruits who had dared to laugh during his storytelling. In a daring move, Rihito seized Schmelman, holding him hostage. In response, Schmelman offered to teach Rihito how to break his own neck, a horrifying proposition that Rihito declined. Instead, he offered to sacrifice himself in Hina's place, defying Schmelman's ominous aura of death. Ferrenda intervened, revealing that the recruits were unharmed, as Allen had utilized paint bullets to drive home a point about unwavering obedience. Schmelman, ever enigmatic, grew intrigued by Rihito's untapped potential. Meanwhile, Murdoch grappled with the paradoxical observation that Rihito appeared to be a young Licht, bearing little resemblance to his future self. As Pele attempted to delve into the mysteries of Alting using a computer, they encountered an impenetrable blockade. Instead, Allen embarked on an explanation about Alting, an advanced, enigmatic technology of unknown origin that had fallen to Earth in the midst of the war. Alting possessed the power to compel humanity to obey its will through a collective vote, leading humanity to dismantle nuclear weaponry and ban all warfare. Yet, these actions had given rise to unforeseen and cataclysmic consequences, matters that Allen hesitated to divulge. Murdoch's growing suspicion hinted at Nana's true intent. It appeared that she not only sought their assistance in aiding Licht but also aimed to unravel the elusive origin of Alting and potentially rescue their future society from the enigmatic grip of this powerful entity. Schmelman, the enigmatic headmaster, made a pivotal decision to personally oversee the education of the newcomers. Meanwhile, Allen, ever the vigilant spy, discreetly eavesdropped on their conversations, learning of the abyss, ballots, and the enigmatic country of Alcia. In a surprising turn of events, Schmelman introduced a reward system involving stars for the students. He clarified that gathering 10 stars would grant immediate entry into the military, while those who lost their stars faced expulsion. Stars could be earned through tasks or pilfering from classmates. A sudden realization struck Murdoch and Hina, who grasped the origin of star stakes. They discerned that these academic trials mirrored the very foundation of their society's practice. Rihito found himself in an unusual predicament, as Schmelman assigned him no stars and instructed him to pilfer one or face expulsion. Licht, on the other hand, seemed indifferent, as his sole purpose at the academy was to persuade his adopted brother, Sakai Tokikase, to return home. Trouble stirred when Don, the academy's resident delinquent, began breaking into lockers and absconding with student stars, including Sakai's. In a bid to thwart Sakai's resistance, Don even threatened Sakai's ailing grandmother, who lived under Don's parents' landlordship. Sakai, however, refused to leave the academy, reasoning that the families of soldiers received larger food rations, which his grandmother desperately needed due to her ailing health caused by malnutrition. In a selfless act, Murdoch gave Sakai his last remaining star. He then confronted Don just outside the academy's gate, issuing a stern warning that he would cripple Don before he could even embark on his military career once he stepped off the academy's premises. Their confrontation was suddenly interrupted by Schmelman himself, who unveiled an unexpected twist. Rihito had pickpocketed Don's stolen stars, leaving him with only 2 and rendering him ineligible for graduation. Recognizing Murdoch's loyalty to his classmates, Schmelman awarded him with 2 stars. Rihito, choosing to retain 2 stars, resolved to remain at the academy with a noble goal in mind, to convince Sakai to return home. He reasoned that as long as they stayed at the academy, they could channel their own food rations to their ailing grandmother, ensuring her well-being. The academy issued a directive to the class, commanding them to uncover the identity of the voyeur spying on individuals in the baths. In a comical twist, the girls embarked on a mission to apprehend Rihito, mistakenly believing him to be the culprit. This mix-up inadvertently led to an unexpected sight for Murdoch, who inadvertently glimpsed Lin in a state of undress. However, as the girls adopted a disciplined, soldier-like approach to dealing with the situation, their resolve intensified. Frustrated by their willingness to become ruthless killers, Rehido decided to abandon his spying efforts, disheartened by the transformation of his classmates. Schmelman offered an unconventional perspective, suggesting that they become soldiers that do not kill. His proposition involved becoming so overwhelmingly powerful that they could intimidate their adversaries into surrender. Murdoch's curiosity led him to follow Schmelman to a concealed facility, where he made a startling revelation. Their objective was to replicate the voting power of Alting, which, while eliminating nuclear weaponry, had failed to eradicate the threat of war. Other nations were already gearing up for a new conflict, and the Academy sought to harness Alting's capabilities to maintain an advantage. In the midst of this covert exploration, Murdoch encountered a young girl with time-traveling abilities, who unveiled herself as the very first ace. Known as the Ace of Knowing, she explained that certain individuals, like Schmelman, possessed the innate ability to genetically harmonize with Alting, granting them unique powers. However, normal humans, like Murdoch, could only achieve this harmonization through ballots. The Ace surgery, she revealed, involved implanting Schmelman's DNA into ordinary children to impart his genetic abilities. Only Nana had survived this grueling procedure. Eventually, Rehido, Sanahara, and 4 others would undergo the same transformation, culminating in a total of 7 aces. Bound by the constraints of her own timeline, the young Nana was unable to divulge more, but she entrusted Murdoch with a modern memory card from her future self, containing vital information about the reason she had sent them to this particular point in time. Making a heartfelt promise to reunite with Nana in 300 years, Murdoch prepared to make his escape. However, his efforts were abruptly thwarted when he was captured by Captain Allen, who promptly sentenced him to execution, casting a shadow of uncertainty over their fate. In a startling revelation, Murdoch came to the realization that Allen was, in fact, a younger version of Alexandrov Grigorovich, his future foster father. In response, Allen himself grasped the gravity of the situation, recognizing Nana's intent to alter the future. Acknowledging the significance of their mission, Allen chose to spare Murdoch's life. Taking them to a citizens' housing area, Allen revealed the stark reality of the situation. They were faced with an insurmountable challenge in providing sustenance for everyone. He earnestly implored them to refrain from hindering the military's efforts, a plea born out of concern for the welfare of the populace. With newfound knowledge of Rehido's eventual transformation into Licht, they grappled with a profound dilemma. Both their existence and the very future of their homeland, Alcia, hinged on Licht's success in the Waste War. Fueled by determination, Murdoch demanded hand-to-hand combat training from Allen, resolute in his ambition to best him in the future and assume the mantle of Supreme Commander. Schmelman, meanwhile, initiated their training regimen, focusing on medieval weaponry. He emphasized that the era of firearms would soon yield to obsolescence, and the most formidable soldiers would be those adept in melee combat. In clandestine discussions, Schmelman divulged a chilling revelation: the impending war was designed to reduce the surplus human population to ensure the species' survival. Under this grim pretext, Schmelman initiated the students' training at the beach, with a high-stakes game of capture the flag. Rehido's class emerged victorious, employing cunning tactics, outsmarting the delinquent Don. Unified by their newfound respect for Rehido's leadership, the class decided to appoint him as their commander. However, the situation took a darker turn when one of Schmelman's subordinates, David, perished on a mission. Before his demise, David managed to transmit a crucial message to Schmelman. Fearing that the ACE project was in jeopardy, Schmelman made the fateful decision to initiate human testing, with Rehido emerging as the strongest genetic candidate. After grasping the gravity of the situation and the potential consequences, Rehido reluctantly consented to undergo the surgery, marking a pivotal turning point in their journey. Faced with the profound consequences of Alcia's potential non-existence, Murdoch made a resolute decision to safeguard Rehido's surgery from any interference. Meanwhile, Don, motivated by concern for Sanahara's well-being, resorted to stealing her last remaining star under the belief that expulsion would keep her safe from the impending war. Murdoch, however, delivered a stern lecture to Sanahara, encouraging her to forge her own path to strength. In a heartfelt gesture, he shared one of his stars with her. Amidst the turmoil, Lin courageously confessed her love for Licht, laying her feelings bare. Ina, on the other hand, made a decisive choice, to allow Rehido to assume the mantle of Licht while ensuring that he refrained from taking lives, thereby averting the development of his Schmelman persona. In this manner, they hoped Alcia could still come into existence following the conclusion of the war. Pele, grappling with his emotions for Lin, was on the brink of sharing his true feelings when an unforeseen crisis struck. A foreign nation launched an attack on the Academy, a puzzling occurrence considering all things supposed ban on war. Chaos ensued as enemy soldiers descended upon the students, leaving a trail of bloodshed in their wake. In the midst of the onslaught, Dome came to Sanahara's rescue, and Murdoch heroically saved most of their classmates. Ferenda, meanwhile, unraveled a troubling revelation. 4 of the 7 ballots needed for an Althing vote were held in foreign nations. This implied that these nations had clandestinely voted to reinstate war, casting a grim shadow over the unfolding conflict. As tensions escalated, the enemy forces severed the electricity supply, endangering Rahito's life due to the incomplete surgery. The entire class banded together, engaging in a desperate struggle to reach the emergency generator. Many of them sustained injuries or met unfortunate fates along the way. In a fateful moment, Alan bore the brunt of a rocket's impact, resulting in the distinctive facial scar he would carry into the future. With Rahito's hair turning white as a dire consequence of his deteriorating condition, Hina found herself ensnared by an enemy soldier, her cry for licked echoing through the chaos. Murdoch reactivates the electricity and Rahito survives. Schmelman gives Rahito his trademark sword, explaining it is a replica ballot that must be activated with an oath of his choosing measured by a number. Rahito defeats soldiers with super speed, earning his name Ace of Flashing Strikes. The soldiers' commander reveals they have a nuclear bomb and the switch is hidden in one of their bodies, meaning Rahito must kill or die. Left with no choice, Rahito beheads them. Before dying, the commander reveals he lied about the bomb and commends Rahito for saving his friends. Rahito breaks down over breaking his oath not to kill, and Hina, Murdoch, Lin, and Pele begin to glow as they are pulled back to their own time. Rahito decides the only way to ensure his friends don't kill is to do all the killing himself and swears his ballot will count the enemies he kills on behalf of others. Realizing she never could have stopped Rahito becoming licked, Hina decides the only thing to do is to love him completely and strips naked, forcing Rahito to fondle her breasts as a memory to hold on to throughout the war, and swears she will be waiting for him in 300 years' time to marry him and carry his children so he will never be lonely again. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to the channel to see the continuation.